It's just ARca. That's how it is.
Oh yeah, crack open a cold one. This one's called Flashback to the Track Podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. Welcome to episode, was it 77 now, Mark?
76.
70. Oh man, I thought we were double sevens.
No.
Got one more episode to celebrate double sevens, but nah, 76. That's America's birth year, 1776. Man, what's the Canadian birth year?
1867.
1867. How'd that come about?
Well, we didn't fight a bloody war with the British. We were like, hey, England, can we be independent? And England was like, you know what? Tired of dealing with you anyway. And it was like, sure, sign the papers. And we emancipated ourselves. So,
hey, man, wars get bloody when tea gets involved. Don't mess with my caffeine, especially if I'm on seat pad. Okay?
no taxation without representation, you know?
Washington, D.C. Anyways, what's going on, everyone? It's James. Mark's here, as always. We're rapping.
James is squeaky chair is here. We're all here. It only squeaks when you don't want it to.
No, it's always squeaking. Where's my WD-40? It's the thing everybody comes to love about the podcast. You know, it's the fact that I sit on the stool. It's cozy and nice, but you can always hear it because I have a big booty.
I reclined in my chair today for some extra comfort, so.
Oh, you so nice. The lazy
It's
boy.
Friday, so I reclined in my chair. It's
Yeah.
Friday evening. It's the dawn of a weekend.
And now with you saying that, people actually think I probably cracked open a beer, or like we put open some cheesy sound effect with like a beer cracking open at the beginning of the podcast. But literally, I opened a can of water because I just wanted to be refreshed.
Because James only drinks water out of cans.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a hipster like that, and I only wear obscure old retro T-shirts to the track. Except when I'm working, then I wear like actual stuff. Like
I only wear
Wednesday.
stupid graphic tees I saw online with funny slogans on them.
You're like someone who lives in Seattle. Like your shirt
Or
always has an agenda.
Or cat shirts. Lots of cat shirts. Either cats are DJs or cats are standing on the moon or wearing space helmets. I like cat shirts. They're fun.
I would like to think in the future there would be a shirt where, you know, it constantly changes its graphic, you know, to whatever mood it sets for you that day.
There you go.
Like you don't get to choose it. It just, you open your closet and it's set to that mood, and that's your outfit for the day.
That could be interesting.
Could be. But then again, that's a lot of technology I don't want to feel like getting into. It's stupid. And I don't get paid enough for that. I'll tell you what I get paid enough for. Doing the best job I can do. That's right. Being the best me I can be. You be the best me you can you. Anyways, Mark, we have a very interesting series we're going to talk about today.
We do. We haven't talked about this in a long time.
No. As Larry McReynolds once said, let's get totally ARca. Actually, I think that was Steve Burns that said that. Yeah, it was Steve Burns, man. Steve Burns told us to get totally ARca one time, and we're going to get totally ARca today as we take a look back at the 2000 Toledo ARca race.
2008.
From fall.
Toledo.
2008. So what was this race called? What was the title sponsor for this one?
This was the 2008 Hantz Group 200.
Yeah, because like when you're watching the broadcast, I believe they call it the 2008 ARca Championship 200.
But it's the Hantz Group 200.
I guess like the Hantz Group didn't have the national ring.
What does the Hantz Group do? I'm going to Google that.
I feel like they're an automotive group, or they could be lawyers.
They are a Michigan-based financial company that works with individuals and businesses to help them achieve their financial goals directly from the Hantz Group website. So there you go.
Yeah, go to the source. Don't ask me. So the Hantz Group 200 or the ARca Championship 200. Either way, it's a 200-lap race at Toledo Speedway, Toledo, Ohio, the birthplace of the ARca Racing Series. This Midwestern racing series. Oh man, it's a great series. First off, because it is still like kind of grassroots series. Yeah, it's big time stock car racing, but it's not quite at the level of NASCAR. But speaking of NASCAR, Mark, when the COT came to town, those Gen 4 Cup cars had to go somewhere.
They went
And
to
the majority of them went to ARca.
Yeah, so ARca at this time, even up until recently, before it was acquired by NASCAR, was its own series. It was the Automobile Racing Club of America, is what ARca stands for. And it was sponsored by Remax for a long time. Then it was, what was it after Remax?
Menards, ARca Menards series.
I think there was something in between there, wasn't there?
I think it might have
It
been
had
like
just been
another...
the ARca Racing series, had no sponsor for a couple of years. I can't remember, but at this point, it was the ARca Remax series. And
it was ARca series presented by Menards. That's what it was. It wasn't the Menards series.
Save big money at Menards.
And then it became the Menards series for some reason.
Yeah, just kind of, it's weird. But ARca at this time was its own series. It did a lot of companion weekends with NASCAR. There was kind of like a mutual interest in running races together because they benefited each other. A lot of NASCAR teams in the driver development area of this time, they used ARCA to develop drivers because it was kind of seen as like it is now. You did ARCA and then you did either Trucks or Xfinity and then you did Cup, or even Cup drivers would go down and run certain ARCA races if it was at a track they'd never been to, like Pocono, for example. Because at this time, Xfinity and Trucks didn't go to Pocono. So if you're making your debut Cup season, you'd never been to Pocono before. So they would run the ARCA race on the Friday or Saturday, whenever it was, and usually win it. I think there's a period of like 5 years in a row, Cup driver won the ARCA race, but it was a really cool series that used basically Gen 4 Cup cars. Some teams built their own ARCA cars from scratch, but the majority of the cars were old Cup Series cars. So you would even see some not even bother to change the paint scheme. When they bought cars from Cup Series teams, they would keep the paint scheme on it and just put their number on and run it. ARCA's kind of, was there a rule, James, you had to have an ugly paint scheme in ARCA back then?
No, I think you just might be smack talking those designers, and also the budget limitations of
looking ARCA cars, man.
Of a lot of these teams, because definitely design wasn't the prowess in a lot of like design.
The budget wasn't there for design.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, but what do you mean specifically?
Well, a lot of them are just kind of drab looking. You know what I mean? Like even Scott Speed's Red Bull car doesn't look as good as the Red Bull Cup cars. You know what I mean? It was like a little different, like shade of blue kind of. It just, and some of the other cars, they just, I don't know, they just didn't look super good. And the number fonts they would use, a lot of them were like really, really kind of like hokey looking. They just didn't have like super professional looking paint schemes, a lot of the cars. More grassroots looking paint schemes.
I think that's part of it, is like it was still grassroots racing, kind of, and it reflected too on the paint schemes. Also, I guess maybe like those cliche looking elements that people like in racing that more so get knocked out of NASCAR, kind of, I guess, we're still showing up here because they definitely still show up in grassroots racing, checker flag imprints and crazy fonts for numbers and random lines and color schemes. I do get what you're saying a little bit there. Yeah. So I'd say more so the grassroots element of it for ARCA.
So talking about the 2008 season specifically, we'll give you a little overview of the season because this was a crazy season for ARCA. There's a lot of Cup Series teams funding operations for different development drivers. It was all about rookie phenoms, and Red Bull's Scott Speed was racing and Roush's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. really the two very talented rookie drivers, like on this sort of development road to NASCAR. If you're not familiar with Scott Speed, he'd been in F1 with Red Bull's second team, Toro Rosso, their B team, in 06 and 07. But halfway through 07, he was let go from that ride, and Red Bull decided, well, we've got him under contract. Let's put him in NASCAR. So he needed some time to develop. So they decided, kind of interestingly, I remember even at the time being shocked. I'm like, they're going to put him in a full season of ARCA. Wow. Like I thought that was a little bit maybe too low of a level. Like I thought they would have done Xfinity, but in hindsight, I respect them for doing that. Start him at a lower level, have him gain some experience. And he did the full 2008 season. And then he did some truck races and stuff. And then Stenhouse was on a much slower progression with Roush. He was doing a full season in ARCA. and then he would work his way up through Xfinity and up to Cup eventually. Scott Speed was in Cup the next year, 2009. So moved up very fast.
Yeah, and I think there was some evident showcase that, like, you know, maybe running a full season of ARCA is beneficial to just running a little bit of ARCA, because it was proven with like Ryan Newman, the ABC program is definitely the way to go if you're going to graduate someone into stock cars who doesn't have that experience and comes from a more of an open wheel background to be successful and proven in the Winston Cup Series or Cup Series. But then, like, you know, there was Casey Mears, David Stremme, I remember Stephen Light, just to name a few of a few drivers that came up and ran a bit of ARCA and more or less just had flashes of success because they had limited starts, but really didn't have the time in the series to run the full season and really get an understanding of running all these different types of tracks. Because what's interesting about ARCA is they go to some pretty unique bull rings and short tracks across America, and then they go to these bigger super speedways. So you really get a diverse amount of racing knowledge thrown at you and experience that you can gain. And, like, you know, Mark's point, like, you know, if a Cup driver wanted to get experience for Pocono, they'd run the Pocono ARCA race. Well, if you wanted to get a super speedway license for NASCAR, what better place to go to than ARCA? Go run an ARCA race, you know, showcase what you can do at a super speedway, you know, like Michigan, showcase what you can do at a super speedway like Daytona and Talladega, and you can get that NASCAR license and then run, you know, the trucks, Xfinity, Cup, what have you. So I think there's a lot more to be said about how Red Bull saw this opportunity, and you have to, like you said, amend them and applaud them for like pushing on and saying, we're going to run the full season with Eddie Sharp. We're not going to like derail from this or anything, because they could have, especially with the early success Scott showed and like how strong he was on intermediate tracks. But like he also was really good at the short tracks too. I think he won at Berlin this season. I'm not sure, because that was not a race that wasn't televised on Speed Channel.
Yeah,
I have to double check the R&R.
But as James is talking about, like using ARCA as a way to get approved by NASCAR for bigger tracks, like back in this time, the ARCA Daytona race was the first race of the season, and it was on the Friday before the Bud Shootout, or usually, sorry, it was a couple hours before the Bud Shootout, the first weekend of Speed Weeks, and it would be loaded with all these development drivers trying to get approved by NASCAR to run Daytona the next week or Talladega later in the year. Because ARCA would usually, you know, let guys run if they had some experience. And then if you did okay, you weren't in trouble and you finished the ARCA race, usually NASCAR would approve you for the bigger series. But looking into to 2008 again, Speed and Stenhouse are not the only players. We got to talk about Justin Allgaier. So Justin Allgaier, at this point, was driving for his family-owned team, the number 16 Chevy. And we talked about old Cup cars. They're driving some cars that were clearly owned by Hall of Fame Racing.
That was definitely the like 96 team, either like their 2006 or 2007 cars. I don't know if they got that specifically from Hall of Fame or like from Joe Gibbs, because they became a Toyota team in 2008. But yeah, I remember the first race I saw with Justin at Pocono, I think it might have been 2005. He was running an old Kevin Harvick car. Still number 16, but you could clearly see it was Kevin Harvick's car, and it was kind of odd to see that. But, you know, surreal things happen in life, and then you realize that race cars never die, Mark. They just go on and live different lives elsewhere.
Exactly. They never die. So Allgaier won 5 races going into the final race at Toledo. He had really closed the gap in points to Speed and Stenhouse, so he's still in contention, but not really seen by anybody watching the broadcast ever as really a chance to win the championship because of how strong Speed and Stenhouse were. And then the other guy who's a big player is our perennial ARCA champion, the only champion so far in the new millennium, Frank Kimmel. He'd won 8 straight championships. He had naturally, just as usual, a very strong year, very good, always finishing top 5, top 10 right there. So he's still mathematically alive. But again, no one's really thinking going into this race that he really has a chance to win. So
no one thought he would really be a contender this year. And it's mainly because he switched teams, Mark. You know, you noticed earlier that his number wasn't 46 anymore. Well, that's because he wasn't with the LCR racing team anymore. He swapped teams. He kind of was doing his own thing. And he had backing from Ford. It was not that much, but he made it through the whole season, and to be currently where he was in the point standings was testament to Frank Kimmel's just veteran ways and his knowledge of the series, because he survived the season and ended up sitting fourth, kind of in a catbird seat as well with Allgaier, just kind of waiting in the wings just in case anything happens to the top 2 point contenders, he could pounce. And speaking of his old team, Matt Carter driving for that team now in 2008. He picked up a win at Toledo earlier in that season. He's sitting 5th. Technically, mathematically, he's out of it, but like in the points picture, I think he's like 190 back. Still, like for that close of a points battle coming down to the last race of the year, spoke a lot to the attrition that the top 2 points contenders saw in the last couple of races during that season, and also the success that Justin Allgaier was seeing, and the way that Frank Kimmel was just keeping out of trouble and running consistently to kind of continue to close that points gap as well. It added to what we see at Toledo being a really good championship points battle. And I love that, Mark. You know, you didn't need anything to kind of shake this points series up. You didn't need a playoff or a reset of the points or anything. It naturally just came back to this close battle like a rubber band, you know. Just, you love it when the points just work out like that instead of it having to be manipulated somehow.
To give you some more like insight into that, like, so coming into the final race, Scott Speed has 90-point lead over Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Allgaier's in third, 10 points farther back, and then Frank Kimmel's a total of 150 behind Speed in fourth. And the thing you got to note is that Scott Speed can clinch the championship as long as he finishes 17th or better, which shouldn't be a problem considering that he's had a strong car all year, and there's probably really at this point maybe 15 really competitive cars in the series. So he really just has to ride around and has a good chance with no mechanical failure of winning the championship. So should be pretty good to do. And if you're Stenhouse, that's kind of insurmountable. You need to win, lead the most laps, and hope that Speed has problems. So
yeah, legit problems. Because I mean, think about it, Mark. If he even finishes on the lead lap with the attrition that we could see in an ARca race, Scott Speed could have easily a top 10 finish, and Stenhouse goes and leads all the laps, wins the race. Still, it can't be enough. So there needs to be something to happen to Scott Speed to get him off his championship course. But Mark, we kind of mentioned it earlier, and we alluded to it. We're watching a race on the Speed Channel, and that was normally the home of ARCA coverage, especially live ARCA coverage. It was really cool to see the races on Speed, though I know they didn't carry every single race throughout the season, but still, it was really nice whenever they had live ARCA coverage on the Speed Channel.
And apparently that was due to a lot of the racetracks they went to not having the capabilities of like them broadcasting from there. So I know the DeCoin race was always on tape delay because they couldn't broadcast from there. I remember when we did our review of that, they mentioned it. But in the booth for this one, James, we got the classic pairing of Rick Allen and Phil Parsons, our Truck Series crew up in the booth doing a great job. And down on pit road, we have Jim Traso and Adam Alexander down on pit road.
The Adam Alexander. That's right. The OG fans remember him for his days on pit road for the Truck Series and ARCA before he was living it up in the booth.
I remember watching Adam Alexander's first ever race as a pit reporter. It was Martinsville fall 06. I still remember that. I don't know why. I just remember they're like, and now we'll get down to our new guy, Adam Alexander.
And he's always been a hit ever since. He's always on it, man. So I've never not enjoyed seeing Adam Alexander in any kind of broadcast, and he always adds some kind of value. So right on. And Mark, I guess we'll get right on to this. It's our favorite segment. Strange starters.
What a strange person.
Oh, so strange, so strange. Strange enough, I think, Mark, we'll start it off with a guy who's a Red Baron, if you want to call him that. Mr. Ken Schrader. He's driving the number 52 Federated Auto Parts Dodge for Ken Schrader Racing. His own team. Ken Schrader, he was a longtime Cup competitor, but he always loved to race anything and everything, from dirt cars to ARCA. And he had competed in the Truck Series as well. He was actually the first guy to win, the first guy to win a Cup race, a Busch race, and a truck race in NASCAR history. So he had competed and won in everything. and everything, and he won an ARCA 18 times throughout his career. And at Toledo, he had 4 victories in ARCA competition. So heading into this race, he looked like that veteran who could just come in and just own it. But, you know, Mark, he might be a little jet lagged. So, because he flew in from Charlotte the night before. That's right, there was a cup race in Charlotte and Kenny was competing over there. He's flown back. He's here, ready to start the race, but, you know, he's going to start from the rear of the field in his Federated Auto Parts Dodge. I like that one, though. It's like silver with the blue. I like that one more than the white with the blue. It kind of just pops more. I don't know if that was like a anniversary special with that car or what, but that was a really cool paint scheme.
It's just a classic ARCA paint scheme. It's like, you know what? The base is silver. Let's just leave it. And, you know, like, why would we paint it?
I don't, because he did it with the Toyotas. I thought he did too. When he kept going. I don't know. We'll always look it up. Oh, by the way, with the R&R reference from earlier, yes, Scott Speed won at Berlin in 2008.
Our next strange starter is another Cup Series driver, David Reagan, and he's driving the number 39 Shriners Hospital for Children Ford for Rouleau Brothers Racing. And he actually got a lift with Kenny Schrader in his plane from the Cup race the night before at Charlotte. So the Cup race was Saturday. This race is on Sunday afternoon.
I think they were buddies too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
David Reagan, he was in his second full-time year in the Cup Series at this point, driving for Roush Fenway in the number 6 car. But you know what? Just decided to return to his roots and go back to ARCA and race for a good cause. He's racing to raise awareness and money for Shriners Hospitals for Children, which help families, less privileged families, pay for surgeries that their children might need and not have to be stuck with medical bills. And this would actually be the final ARCA race that David would ever race in. So this is final ever ARCA race. So David Reagan.
Nice. Let's go to another up-and-coming star in NASCAR, Brian Scott, driving number 25 Albertsons Chevrolet for Veneriti Motorsports. Brian Scott at this point was competing in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. He was running his first full-time season in 2008. I believe that was the number 16 Shark Energy Albertsons. It was the Chevrolet at the time. Still with that like cool 16 Express Motorsports font. I remember that vividly. But yeah, he was also building a little bit of momentum during the second half of the year because he struggled a lot during the first half, and he also was getting more seat time too, running ARCA events, competing specifically with Veneriti Motorsports as a developmental deal. And he made 8 starts. He earned a top 5 and the final 4 races. So not bad. So yeah.
Yeah,
Brian Scott.
He did pretty well that second half of that truck season. I know he really struggled early, and then like that second half, he just started riddling off top 10s at the end of the year and carried that into the next year. And, he got good. People were like not sold on him, and then he turned it around and just got really good. So,
well, yeah, yeah, the thing is, it's like when you come in with that money, people have that extra microscope on you. And unfortunately, that's what happened with Brian. But, especially as the years would show, he would come into his own and really become a strong driver.
Next up, we have Ner Ali. He's driving the number 45 Dodge for Cunningham Motorsports. Now, Ner is a Pakistani-American racing driver who actually grew up in Germany and moved to the U.S. when he was 8. He actually started out in the open wheel ladder, doing some racing in Star Mazda and Formula Mazda, did A1 Grand Prix in 2007 for Team Pakistan. And 2008, decided to try out stock car racing, and what better series to do it in than ARCA. He ran at Daytona and then at the beginning of the year, and then ran this final race at Toledo. And over the next few years, he made a couple ARCA starts. He did one Xfinity race for Rick Ware Racing in 2012, but that was really all stock car racing he did. And then he did some Global Rally Cross Lights for a little bit. And now he's actually focused on his son Pasha's karting career. So Ner Ali, and they live, I believe, in Texas now, when I was doing my research. So Ner Ali, interesting one. Probably, I would argue, one of the only Pakistani-born drivers that's ever raced in NASCAR. Probably the only one, or raced in ARCA.
Diversity. Finally, let's talk about his teammate, Parker Kligerman. He'll be driving the number 77 Dodge for Cunningham Motorsports. Kligerman at this time was just 18 years old, and he was beginning his time as the Penske/Dodge developmental driver. This was just his second start in the ARCA series, and he made his debut a few weeks earlier at New Jersey Motorsports Park. Now, he would go on to run full-time in 2009 and would be a very dominant force in ARCA, graduating into the Truck Series driving for Brad Keselowski Motorsports until that his Penske developmental deal kind of ended. He did make some Xfinity Series starts, would later go on and be a KBM driver. And nowadays he's just doing anything and everything, driving, being a TV personality, living the dream, man. I mean, come on, he's getting paid to drive cars, go fast, and have fun doing it, man. PK.
So now we'll just go into some of our pre-race notes here. We're racing, as we said, the half-mile Toledo Speedway in Toledo, Ohio. It's a track that ARCA would go to twice a year, usually. And it was a season finale in 07 and 08. They still go to Toledo. In fact, last year they went there 3 times. They like Toledo so much.
Like I said, it's the birthplace of the series, right in the backyard of where ARCA is from.
We're doing 200 laps today, James, which comes out to 100 miles on this half-mile speedway. Justin Lofton started from the pole, and Scott Speed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., championship battlers, are lined up in row 2, side by side.
And we've already discussed this. Scott Speed just needs to finish 17th if Ricky Stenhouse is going to lead every lap and win this race. And as we noted, Scott Speed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. are starting right next to each other on the field. Kimmel and Allgaier are still in it to win it, but they need something drastic to happen. And green. No, the race is underway. Mark, the thing is about this race, and from the start of it, there's no rhythm except for a stop and a start, a stop and a start. Because the second we get a few green flag laps in the books, the caution flag's a waving for something on track. First incident, I believe that involved David Reagan, unfortunately, and Parker went for a quick little spin, and unfortunately, that checked up the field and threw out the caution, and then another caution, and then a green flag racing, and then another caution. But I think the biggest loser for sure was Dexter Bean in that first one, man. He was up front, had a good starting position, got caught up and spun, and then he was the next caution because he got wrecked into the wall, man, in that Glock 37 Chevrolet.
Just caution after caution in this one. There's lots of cautions in this race, but we do get some long green flag runs, and we noticed early on that it's going to be a tough battle between Scott Speed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And Speed's in second place. Stenhouse is all over the back of him. Actually, right before the one caution, gets into him when he gets loose, trying to drive underneath him, and runs him up the track. And they're like, okay, things are not well between the two of them. And nothing really cools down in this race ever after that move. And Stenhouse is kind of starting to lose his patience with Scott Speed, and he's like all over him going down the straightaway. And on lap 27, he kind of just experiences what we call ARCA breaks, I guess, James. Forgets that he has them and runs Scott Speed all down the back straightaway and puts him in the wall. Flagrantly.
Hey, you can call that what you want, man. He just straight up ran him into the wall and dumped him. There was no excuse for that. There was a little bit of contact as they exited 1 and 2. And of course, Stenhouse got loose and he saved it, but then he just kind of kept going, and it didn't matter that he missed the entry braking zone of that corner. He just didn't care and drove Scott Speed straight up into the wall to a point where he would damage his car. And you know what? I would say Ricky Stenhouse successfully did that. Congratulations. You accomplished something, Ricky.
Yeah. I can see moving him out of the way, but to go into a race and be like, you know what? The only way I'm going to win the championship is if I wreck this other guy. And clearly that was the plan, was just to wreck Speed, took him out of the race super early, bent the toe link on the back of Speed's car. His car was undrivable after that.
The whole rear end was bent out of place.
Yeah.
You can see it's all shifted over and it's not really connected. I think the track bar's dismounted. The whole thing's destroyed. And the thing about it is ARCA doesn't do a thing about the situation. They don't even give Stenhouse a warning at that point for what he did.
Yeah. Don't worry, Scott. You got justice, because they issued Ricky Stenhouse Jr. a warning for aggressive driving. It's he should have been parked for that.
No, he should have been at least put down 5 laps for that, and that would have been fine, because after this incident clears up, we get back to racing. It's evident that Scott Speed's car is not even close to being on pace, as he gets lapped basically 2 laps after the field goes back to green, to which his strategy changes from I'm just going to ride it out and see if we can finish in the top 10 to let me just take out Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And as they went down the front straightaway, he doored him a little bit. It was all good. 17 gets by, 99 gets by, and then he goes down into turn 1 and just sails it in from the bottom up to the top, takes him out, takes himself out hard, and then comes down and destroys the inside retaining barriers for the pit wall. Just, I don't know about you, Mark. I kind of gained a little bit of respect for Scott Speed right there. Like that was cool, but like
I lost a lot of respect for both of them.
That was an eye for an eye situation that like
I get it.
that didn't need to happen. Like
probably
good for you for not taking any lip there, but like, man, you destroyed that man's race car.
I get it. It's like if you don't want me to win, I'm gonna make sure that you don't win. But hindsight's 2020.
That's what he said too.
knowing what we know now, they probably should have just tried to fix it, and they probably could have finished 17th or better. After you see how much attrition happens in this race.
I want to say they could have, but the thing is would have they been really able to fix it to the point where they would have been able to make laps and not go laps down? Because that's the thing. It's like I feel like they would have went too many laps down to really have been able to gain a lot of positions, even with the high attrition rate, to be able to finish where they needed to be. So, I mean, to be quite honest, I think Kenny Schrader said it best. Both these drivers didn't deserve to win this championship. They were not experienced enough, not mature enough to do so. And thank goodness it doesn't look like either of them are going to win it, because that would have been a bunch of BS if either of these guys are 2008 ARca champions. No offense. I'm glad they've both matured and become better drivers and better people and everything. But like at this point, like this doesn't make racing look good at all.
No. And Scott Speed climbs from his car, hops over the wall, and he walks right up to Alexander. And let's go to one of my favorite interviews of all time.
Well, Scott, obviously some frustration. Take us through what happened first when you and Stenhouse got together going in turn 3.
He was on my bumper and he pushed me flat out until I hit the wall. And then the car was completely undrivable. It wasn't even close. It was so bad from hitting the wall. Couldn't do anything with it.
Talk about the retaliation here as we watch the replay.
Hey, he started it. He ain't going to win this championship with that attitude. I mean, that was ridiculous. That was the most blatant thing I ever saw in my life. And honestly, I mean, it's just ARca. It's how it is.
Now let's
just ARca, James. It's how it is.
Yeah, ARca. It's ARca's serious. It's the people who race in it that make it look like a silly sport. So I think Scott Speed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. need to really reevaluate themselves on that. So yeah. That's all I got to say about that. Anyways, here's the thing. Even if Scott Speed's team is able to fix Scott Speed's car, because Adam Alexander did display that the team brought every part that would be put back on the car, that needed to be put back on the car, was there behind the pit wall, just laid out. Even if they were able to repair that car, ARca has ruled that the driver of the number 2 is done for the day. He's not allowed back in the race. So unfortunately, Scott Speed's done, and it doesn't look like he's going to win this championship. Though Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s team is frantically working on the number 99. So frantically that Ricky doesn't even want to give an interview right now, Mark. He's in the car, window net up. They got the car on jack stands. They got like 4 different Ford teams down there cutting away at it, trying to make that thing look good. But I don't even think they're going to get that thing back in the race.
They had Greg Biffle's Busch Series crew chief there, like calling the shots for the weekend. Like they had pull out all the stops, man, and try and win that championship. But eventually, Jim Trato does work his way down there, and we do get to hear from Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So let's get his side of the story.
We hear welders, hammers. Ricky, from your perspective, this scenario never entered the picture. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I tell you what, I just hate it for all the Aflac guys. This car was really good, and we hit the rubble strips down here in 1 and 2 and got down to turn 3 and the brakes went to the floor. It hadn't happened last time we were here, but hadn't happened on all practice, but it did, and then I guess he just got us back there when he was a lap down or so. But
Ricky, I heard you discussing some brake issues. Was there any brake issues when you did make contact?
I really couldn't tell what you said there, but when I hit the rumble strips down here in 1 and 2, the brake pedal, I guess it moved the pads away from the rotor there, and it just went down in turn 3 and didn't stop as well as I thought it was going to. But, all these Aflac guys are working really hard, and hopefully we can get this thing back out there and hopefully gain some points. I'm pretty sure the championship's out of it, but we just got to go out there and gain as many points as we can.
Yeah, I wonder if like he was trying to figure out an excuse all that time, or did he have one planned out before he like wrecked Scott Speed or what? But like, man, that excuse was some BS too. I get it. I get what he's saying, but like, nah, man, I ain't buying that. I ain't buying your brake issue, dog.
But the real beneficiary in all of this.
I'm not giving Ricky a break for his brakes.
Let's talk about Justin Allgaier. So
Little
Justin
Gator is
Allgaier
doing
is
good.
laughing now. Justin Allgaier and Frank Kimmel are like, hey, we needed a miracle, and we got it because
I don't
both
think he's
these
laughing.
morons took each other out.
He's got to be shaking now because, dude, the ball's in his court. Now,
Yeah.
if he messes up, oh, crap, here comes Frank Kimmel. Frank Kimmel's going to be cool as a cucumber. He's already been in this situation, dude. He's won 9 championships. Justin Allgaier, ooh, now he's in the hot seat. He's got control of this championship. But what's funny is, like, looking at the points, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. isn't that far back, even though he kind of looks out of this race. If he can somehow get back into the race, and something happens to Justin Allgaier and Frank Kimmel, could Ricky Stenhouse Jr. somehow retain the title and get it?
That's the thing. It's like you got to back out there and run laps because you never know what might happen, right? And
And
unfortunately,
as we're going to see, this race is going to get very, very wacky, and the attrition will hit everyone.
so we get some strange starter action kind of past the 50-lap mark. David Reagan and Ken Schrader both kind of moving up into the top 5 after starting at the back. Justin Allgaier and Frank Kimmel are also in the top 5, so we get a lot of strong cars. And by lap 70, battle really starts to heat up between Justin Lofton, who was the pole sitter, and Justin Allgaier. But caution's out. Terry Jones hits the wall, which sucks for my fellow countryman, the Windsor, Ontario native, as he was running 4th when he spun around, one of his best runs of the season. We get pit stops under caution. Justin Lofton comes down. He gets tires. Ken Schrader also decides to pit. Kind of some discussion over most teams are only going to make one pit stop. And like, when are you going to make it? What's more important, tires or track position? It's kind of one of those kind of tracks. Allgaier stays out to take over the lead, and he gets those all-important 5 bonus points for leading a lap. So
Yep, but not only that, it's not their time to pit. And you know who else is out there with him? It's Frank Kimmel. So those two are going to be up front, and they're going to fight for the lead after this restart. And the pack of drivers with fresh tires behind them, oh, they're going to be barreling down, Mark. But the thing is, the caution, they come out, and unfortunately, you can't really use those new tires when caution laps are being run. Unfortunately, Brian Silas, he got into Gabby DiCarlo, and Justin Allgaier is going to finally come to pit road. It looks like their strategy is going to work into favor to pit for tires. They're one of the they're one of the last of the leaders to come in and pit for tires, Mark. I feel like that's going to really play in later on in this race, because I would want to have tires towards the end of this race. It seems like you can get track position back, but tires are going to be more valuable during these longer green flag runs.
And during this sequence, Frank Kimmel decides to stay out under the caution to lead a lap, and then comes to pit road 1 lap later. So just to make sure he gets those 5 bonus points, which is actually kind of a fun thing to mention. If you're ever on like Racing Reference and you're like, oh, look at all these guys that led 1 lap. Well, back in the day, the teams near the back of the field used to stay out and lead a lap under caution to get those 5 points, right? It's because it's important for the points championship to stay in the top 35. So,
well, not only that, it was just 5 points. You were not going to make that up by passing one car for 33rd position. You would make up 5 points if you passed somebody in the top 5. And I think that also added to that too, where like nowadays, leading lap's worth 1 point, which is the same as every position. So is it really worth it? In the long run, it might be. In the short game, not really.
In the days of a points-based championship like this, like 5 points is incredibly important, right? How much did Kurt Busch win the championship by in 2004, right? The Cup Series, 7 points, 6 points. So, that's 2 laps led during the season that you wish you had, right? So
exactly.
we get the restart, lap 91, but there is a massive wreck on the second lap of this run on the front straightaway. Several cars involved. Michael Simcoe actually gets up onto Andy Hansen's hood at one point from the impact. Brian Scott's number 25 is badly damaged, so one of our strange starters gets knocked out of the race already. Under the caution, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. returns to the track, so he's back out there some 30 laps down, but he's out there.
And he's back. And we're back to racing. And on this restart, Matt Carter in the number 46 takes the lead, the dark horse in the points championship. Now, a few laps later, David Reagan takes it back, and he's at the top spot. But meanwhile, Justin Allgaier, he's been working his way through the field. He's up to 4th now. Frank Kimmel's behind him in 5th. Tag team working their way through the field. Frank Kimmel's just 40 points behind Allgaier. And Justin just needs to be 9 positions on track ahead of Frank Kimmel to win the title. Now, speaking of Kimmel, he's actually going to get into the 00 of Matt Krajewski. I actually thought it was Majeski when I first heard it. I'm not kidding. I thought it was Majeski. I thought Ty had a relative, but he did. He cut down a right front tire, and that sent him into the wall. And now he'll have to pit, and that will take him out of contention. That was just a bad sequence.
Frank Kimmel cut a tire from the contact and had to pit.
Oh, Frank cut a tire?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You're
Frank
kidding
Kimmel,
me.
the champion, made a mistake.
No way.
So after the restart, it was like another restart because, it's just stop and go. David Reagan's up front. He's battling with Justin Lofman. They're working through lap traffic. The great thing about Toledo is they're always working through lap traffic 3 wide. You get great racing because of that. But they get together. David Reagan cuts a tire. And he has to pit, so he goes 2 laps down. Justin Lofton gets the lead. But then 1 lap later, Justin Lofton has issues. They don't say exactly what it is, just that he slowed up and had to go to the pit lane. So,
it was definitely a tire. You could see the tire was down. But the thing is for Eddie Sharp, think of his range of emotions right there. I thought I was going to win the championship with Scott Speed. Well, at least I might win this race with Justin Lofton. Now Justin Lofton just lost tire. I'm just going home. I'm Eddie Sharp. Man, he must be pissed. And I believe he was Justin Lofton's spotter at that time too.
I believe you're correct. I think I mentioned that on the broadcast. It's like everything just went to shambles. You wake up in the morning and you're like, gonna win an ARca championship today.
Yeah, everything's going your way, and then the wind is out of the sails, my friend. It was such a bad day. But during that whole sequence of events, guess who's going to take the lead? Little Gator, Justin Allgaier, is not out front. But does he want to be out front with what's happened to literally everyone else who's been out front? I don't know. But we keep going. Eventually, we get a caution when our strange starter, Kenny Schrader, is going to have contact with Bobby Gerhardt on track, and that's just going to lead to another caution. But, Mark, Kenny had some good words that he said about Justin Allgaier, and he had some bad words that he said about Scott Speed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So I always love his little soundbite. Let's take a listen.
Well, we're going to step into Kenny Schrader's discussion with his crew and find out exactly what did happen. Kenny, what did happen out there on the racetrack?
Ran out of room. Gerhardt decided he needed to not get past, and so he moved up to go around lap car and kind of had him pinned behind it. It's racing, man.
You've been part of a lot of excitement here in Toledo. You've won your share, but also come very close. How about today's race? It's kind of crazy out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, it's just kids that think they're racing for a championship and maybe they ain't ready to.
How about Justin Allgaier and how proud you are of this kid who might win an ARCA championship by the end of the day?
I couldn't be more proud of him, but we'll just see what happens. But, boy, we're sure hoping for him.
Some bad words about Bobby Gerhardt, too. So.
I mean, they weren't as bad as they were about Ricky and Scott there. But, yeah, I mean, he was being real about Bobby. But the thing about Bobby is, hey, man, Bobby's racing this series all the time. You're going to give him a little more respect than you would give Scott Speed and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who are just coming into the series for a season and just going to use it to go up to the next step, basically, in their stock car racing career or stock car racing ladder. So, yeah. And Kenny's had a frustrating day, man. He flew all the way from Charlotte to come here, was involved in the first caution, thought he could get a top 5 at least, and now he's wrecked, sitting in the dirt at Toledo's infield.
So through all this calamity, James, Frank Kimmel, who had a tire issue earlier, he's back up into 3rd spot. So he's got a strong car, but it's kind of all for naught because there's not really much he can do if Justin Allgaier doesn't have problems. He has to finish 9 spots ahead of him to win the championship.
Yeah, it's like the laps need to stop ticking by, and Justin Allgaier needs to pull off the track sooner rather than later, because the thing is, even as we close into almost 10 laps to go, I don't even think that's enough time for Frank to close in if Justin has an issue and has to get off track. I don't think he'd lose enough positions in that time period.
Yeah, but you mentioned, so Matt Carter, he's got a strong car. He gets by Justin Allgaier, but then Allgaier comes right back and gets the lead back with 11 laps to go. Because you know what? We're not being conservative. I want the win and the championship in the same weekend. And then with 6 to go, Matt Carter gets into Justin Lofton, who's fast, but 2 laps down and kind of in his way. And Matt just didn't appreciate it.
That was code for Matt Carter needed a caution because he wanted one more shot at Justin Allgaier because he wants to win both races at Toledo in 2008. All right, he wants to end his season with a W, and it doesn't matter how he's going to do it. He wanted that opportunity. But here's the thing, Mark. We're not quite in the window for a green right checkered. We're going to get a restart with 2 laps to go. But to add a little more stress to Justin Allgaier right now, who's sitting in first place, ARCA will never end a race under the yellow flag. They will get a green-white checkered in, and it's always like a 1-lap shootout. So no matter what, ARCA race will end under green. But will it end under a green-white checkered this time?
Well, we go green, and fortunately for Justin Allgaier, he gets a big jump, holds off Matt Carter. He wins his 6th race of the season and the 2008 ARCA Remax Series Championship.
It's a feel-good story, everyone. Just so good. Can you feel it? Can you feel it, Mr. Krabs? Come on, yeah. I mean, come on. This is a cool story when this happened. Because think about this, man. This happened live on Speed. Allgaier was just announced a week earlier that he would be taking over the Penske Nationwide Series ride. And now he comes out and wins the ARCA Championship driving for his family team. And to pull off the upset coming from 3rd, not even a consideration by a lot of the experts. Man, what a comeback. What a feel-good story. Why hasn't Hollywood made a movie about this yet? This is amazing.
It's just one of the craziest races ever. And that's kind of how I had to look at it, is it gets kind of like forgotten as being a good race because of like what happened between Scott Speed and Ricky Stenhouse. That's kind of all people talk about, but it was a good race. Yeah. And Justin Allgaier was the beneficiary, and he's sailing into the sunset. He's going to Penske next year. Like, everything's just coming up Millhouse for him, you know? So,
and it's truly like, you know, when you see for his family to see like the rewards of their labor, the fruits of their labor, having, you know, put everything behind Justin and show for him to showcase his talent, and not only for him to showcase his talent by winning races and eventually winning this championship, but to your point, you know, he's graduating to the next level, but he had been in that series for so long running with that team. And it's just it's so good to hear something good happening to a good guy, you know? And this was definitely, for me, this as a fan, like I already was a Justin Allgaier fan, but this was like, yeah, he's going to be that next guy. He's going to move up. He's going to be like, you know, proven champion. You know, he's going to continue to win championships as he moves through the ranks, and he's going to be that next great guy. And, you know, he's proven himself to be great as an Xfinity Series driver for sure. And he's had success in every single series he's run in. So, I mean, I feel like the hype of Stenhouse and Speed throughout the season overshadowed Allgaier, but guys like Roger Penske didn't sleep on Justin Allgaier, and they knew the talent that was there, and they were able to see through the hype that was being portrayed, and they could see the talent and really focus on him. And it's really great that he got the championship, man. So happy.
Yeah, and Justin Allgaier is a guy, like you said, he's, you know, had such good, you know, such great success in the Xfinity Series, and had he gone to Cup with a team that was competitive, I think he would have had a shot at a Cup Series career. Fortunately, H. Scott Motorsports just wasn't competitive. He had one top 10 in 2 years. They just never had it figured out. And, you know, and we saw even when Clint Boyer went there, that team was not fast. You know,
yeah, he never mentioned that to Clint ever.
Yeah, 3 top 10s or whatever he had the whole season. And, you know, before we rate this race, James, you know, what did we learn? Do you want to hear a fun story about Scott Speed at this race? So
yeah, sure.
So Scott Speed, fun fact, Toledo does not have a tunnel. It's an old-fashioned short track. If you want to leave in the middle of the race and you're in the infield, you can't. It's with the race is over. You can't cross over the track. So Scott Speed was crashed out on lap 35, and he didn't want to stay at the racetrack. So he complained to the people in the care center that he was having discomfort and that he thought, so they said, okay, well, we're going to transfer you to hospital then for further observation. So they put him in the ambulance. Under the caution, the ambulance drove him out, took him to the hospital. And then when he got to the hospital, he walked out, called Slugger Lobby to come pick him up because he faked being hurt so he could leave the track and not have to wait for the race to be over. Absolutely brilliant.
That's some Formula One tomfoolery right there. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah.
Just I don't know, man.
Don't do that, folks.
Insert Kenny Schrader here. Just insert Kenny Schrader here. Please.
Don't fake being hurt, especially if your insurance company does not pre-approve the ambulance ride. Okay? So...
See, come on. What's $750 to him? The worst part is that the ambulance that was supposed to be there for anyone who did get hurt was not there because someone had to fake an injury to leave because they wanted to use it as their personal valet.
Good old Scott Speed.
Scott Speed. Anyways, let's rate this race. So, Mark, if we did watch the quality version we did on YouTube, it was the whole version, not the parts that is uploaded. I believe it was
no championship celebration. There's no championship celebration.
Yeah, it cuts off right at the end. So Justin Allgaier,
they got to go to the 11 o'clock news, right now or whatever,
What it could have been was, because I remember when I watched it, I didn't watch the whole race live. I came back and I watched the second half of the race. So I learned about the initial incident in a recap segment. Then I heard about it on Wind Tunnel, and then Speed re-aired the race later on that evening. So it could have been then, because I remember it cut out immediately after he won. So that might have been when they recorded it. But it was at a beautiful 480p, not too high quality, not too low, just right. You can see a little pixelation. So had a ticker at the top. That's another thing too. We had live timing and scoring.
We had 2 pit reporters for an ARca race.
And we had Rick Allen and Phil Parsons. Phil Parsons got to talk about Benny Parsons. That was good.
Yeah.
Anytime we talk about ARca, you always have to talk about Benny Parsons.
We had good strange starters. All of them were involved in incidents, and Parker Kligerman was the only one that finished in the top 10.
We had Frank Kimmel somehow lose a right front tire after we saw someone make contact with his left rear tire. That was funny. Yeah, I don't know, man.
The universe decided Justin Allgaier was winning the championship that day. I think that's what happened.
I think God woke up that morning and was like, you know what? I think I'm going to make this happen today.
I think I'm going to do this for Justin. I know that he already got that Penske deal and he doesn't need this, but you know what?
I think, you know what? Happen. It's not for him, man. I think I'm going to make it about his family.
Exactly.
Yeah. So besides that and the totally ARca antics, how would you rate this race?
10 out of 10.
9 out of 10?
10 out of 10. This race is amazing.
10 out of 10.
This race lives in infamy forever. Scott Speed just saying it's ARca, it is what it is, is just my favorite thing ever. This is a 10 out of 10 because it's probably the most infamous ARca race of all time. Find me a more famous ARca race than this one. I don't think there is one. Everybody knows this race because of what happened. You had two men have the most utter disrespect for the idea of being a champion, and just let it boil over and have this lust of wanting this title completely have them lose all respect for the sport they compete in. And we got to see the ultimate underdog story of Justin Allgaier and his family-owned team beating Roush Fenway and Eddie Sharp and Red Bull and winning because he wasn't an idiot. All he did was ride around and he won the championship because these two morons took each other out. And to me, it's a 10 out of 10 because of the storylines. There's great racing in this race as well. Most of the action's over after the Stenhouse Speed thing, but this is a great race, man. And it's a 10 out of 10 because it just checks all the boxes for me.
I would say the biggest thing is I'm not going to get the number yet. I'm going to say the number for the end. First thing, I've never seen two go-kart kids. I've never seen a go-kart situation acted out in professional motorsport. And by that I mean I've never seen the utter lack of respect, not only for crew members and the people who work on the cars, let alone fans and everyone else, than I did when Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Scott Speed wrecked each other. That was like just disrespectful on every aspect. It was just childish, silly. I get it. We all get mad, and you just have to hold your frustration. And you know what? If you really want to take it out on somebody, why don't you physically go see them afterwards? And, you know, normally just physically going up and confronting them doesn't have to be a physical altercation, but just being face to face. Sometimes that can do a lot more than just taking each other out and destroying equipment that you don't have any pride in working on, cannot take any pride in saying you fix or anything. Now, I can't speak to Ricky or Scott on that, but I mean, Justin obviously was always working with his family to help deal with things. And I think that's another thing why you didn't see him do something stupid, because he respected his equipment. He respected that.
He had a lot more to lose, right?
He did. And it wasn't just because
his family's money, not, you know, Scott Speed doesn't care if he wrecks a race car.
And also too, his reputation. I think Allgaier cared more about his reputation than Stenhouse or Speed did. And that was more because of their place. You know, initially in the broadcast, it said, Scott Speed's going to Cup after this. Tomorrow he is a NASCAR Cup Series driver tomorrow. And it's like, okay, so today doesn't matter really. Even win, lose, or draw, he's still going to the NASCAR Cup Series tomorrow. And for Stenhouse, his trajectory within Roush was pretty cemented, but like he needed to go win that championship. And it was more of an all costs kind of situation. So yeah, once all that drama was over, man, it was a great race. You know, there was some good 3-wide action, a lot of good action for strategy. Tire wear was big, mysterious tires going down, good contact, short track rubbing and racing, couple tempers flare. I'd give it an 8. The drama beforehand was really annoying though. It's definitely worth watching because, like, you know, you can watch that, and I think a lot of people can even relate that to road rage, bro. Like, get mad at somebody on the street, you're not supposed to take him out.
Well, this is what Scott Speed's known for, right? And, you know, this is how he is. He boils over, and, you know, he got banned from iRacing for some things that happened. And, you know, and we saw it in Formula One too, right? The reason that he wasn't with Red Bull anymore is because, like, he thought he was smarter than the engineers and wouldn't listen to them. And then they're like, you know what? I'm tired of dealing with you. Here's your plane ticket. Go home. And they kicked him out, and he went and did the NASCAR thing, and that didn't really last either. And it's unfortunate, man. Somebody with so much talent. But, you know, he did go on to have a great, you know, career in rallycross racing, right? Which is, requires a whole different type of car control. And, you know, he had a great career doing that. So, and Ricky Stenhouse is still in the Cup Series, you know, so it's been 13 years since this race, and he still has a, you know, a career in stock car racing. So they both went on to do different things and be successful. You know, Ricky won 2 Xfinity Series championships after this, and he's won 2 Cup races. So yeah, they both have matured and become much better drivers, because even after this, they were, you know, Scott Speed in NASCAR wasn't the best thing ever for Red Bull. You know, that wasn't a shining spot in their portfolio to help their team's longevity in Cup Series. And Stenhouse was truly a bit of an eyesore for Roush for a few years in the Xfinity Series. Mark, I think we were talking about it earlier with, like, I think it was him and Colin Brown when they were moved up, and they kept both wrecking, and Jack parked them both and sat them down and had a serious conversation with both of them, and kind of put them on like a trial by fire basis, where it's like, if you don't perform, I'm just going to axe you. I could put anybody else in my equipment and they would at least bring it home in one piece, you know, kind of thing. And it's good to see that they've matured and grown up a bit, but at this time it's really influential when you're a younger fan, how other drivers' actions can be perceived, you know, like, for example, like how young fans of football players look at the way a professional football player carries themselves, and they replicate their actions around them. You know, this doesn't do professional racing a good to see how retaliation is taken to that sort of level, you know? Yeah, I'm trying to look up when exactly Stenhouse was pulled from the 6 car in 2010.
I don't know if it's 2009
It was 2010. 2009 he did partial, but failed to qualify for the race at Nashville the 13th race because they didn't have enough points because they had so many bad finishes.
What race was Texas?
Was
that 10 or 8?
Yeah, there was a crash. There was the 7th race at Texas. I'm trying to open this up. Thank you, Racing Reference.
So Texas, from what I remember, they wrecked each other.
I believe it was him and Carl Edwards that wrecked each other out in that race. I'll have to watch those again. But yeah, and then he was sat after the Nashville race for the next race, which would have been, I don't know what the next race was, came back for Road America, and they took him out of the car again after Iowa. And I think that was a sponsorship thing. So because they were struggling to find sponsors. Yeah, because the next race was Watkins Glen, and they put Billy Johnson in the 6 car for that race. So, it looked like his career was going to be over, and then he smartened up and he won the championship the next 2 years. So, he bounced back and he reacted to it in the proper way, went out and made it right.
Yeah, it seemed like City stayed with them for the season. It just, it was one of those things where like he had flashes of success and then just really rough races where it was like a 29th after running 6th and having a 4th and then another a top 10 and then an 11th place and then just kind of like up and down. But like, to your point, once 2012 and 2013 hit, it was just like he was unstoppable in that series. It's just he found something and he finally clicked. And even in the Cup Series, you see the sparks of what Ricky Stenhouse Jr. can do and how he's a strong driver. It's just he's a little rough and he's aggressive, and you got to accept that. You just got to rein it in. You know what I mean?
So that's really what we learned from this race. What we learned is that they all go on to have decent careers in auto racing, and they all smartened up. And this was clearly the low point of their careers.
Yes.
So
kids, learn from their mistakes. We've all been there. We've all gotten mad. But here's the biggest thing, people. If you ever get road rage, don't pull a Ricky Stenhouse and Scott Speed. All right?
Yeah. Because if someone ever runs you off the road at the karting track, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That person's a dick.
They're going to get black flagged anyways, especially if you go to GoPro. They don't like it when you bump there.
Don't worry about it.
It's okay.
Just move on in your life.
iRacing happens, So you get hit, just come over that radio. I'm sorry, man. If someone doesn't say it back to you, you know what? Get out of the car. Woosla. Just breathe out. It's over. We're going to end this with a breathing exercise.
We're going to end this by thanking our partners at Blue Emu. So
yeah.
I would like to thank everyone buy yourself some Blue Emu. That's the big thing. And
they provide us with maximum strength pain relief for tired muscles and joints. It works fast and you won't stink. The official pain relief partner of the Major League Baseball people and the NASCAR people.
Yep.
So you know what that means.
Of the NASCARs.
The NASCARs. They're involved in team sports. And they know as a team, it's all about everybody doing their part, pulling their weight, and it makes everything come together. So in your regimen of relief, make sure you incorporate Blue Emu Maximum Strength pain relief products into that regimen, because it's always good to have a recovery regimen. You know what I mean, Mark? Like doing some stretching, going as extreme as taking an ice bath, hot shower. It's always good recovery. Sauna. It's always, doing a sauna session. It's always good recovery. Or you can make it even simpler. Get a combination of all those things by dropping in a Blue Emu bath bod into your bathtub. Nice warm bath. Bam. You got that warm element of a sauna.
It's my Saturday ritual, man.
You got nice aroma. Ooh, yeah. And if you're Mark, you got candles going on. You got some Oasis playing in the background.
My candle right here going on. So, gotta relax.
It's
important to just chill and relax sometimes. And yeah, use Blue Emu as part of your, sometimes you just need a little bit extra to help you, get through some pain and get things going. And Blue Emu can help with that. So
all about that recovery, man.
Range of products available at major retailers like Walmart, Walgreens, CVS.
I'm still upset about that Walmart placement. I can't get over it. It's like an aisle, the end cap, an aisle. How am I supposed to see the end cap?
Walmart's on the Red Bull Formula One car now as a sponsor.
Yeah, is it?
I saw that today.
Is it just for America?
I don't know. They're in Portugal this week, so I don't know.
They might have Walmarts in Portugal.
They have Walmarts worldwide, so yeah.
South America push then. Because they do that sometimes with like some other sponsors, which is kind of interesting.
So
how much global reach some brands have. But yeah, thanks again to our partners. Thanks again to our listeners. That was a fun podcast. We learned a lot. We got to talk some smack, give our mind, and we all learned a lot here. I think that's the biggest thing. Take away some good lessons. And you know what? If you're ever feeling mad or angry, just watch Scott Speed take out Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and that'll blow off a lot of steam.
Don't do
always
what Scott Speed does.
Oh gosh, Scott Speed will never feel happy about that.
I think he's probably proud of himself looking back on it.
Oh yeah, that and the ambulance ride out of the. It's like those are his proudest moments from that whole ARca season. That I won Kentucky, bro. Heck yeah. And they gave me the ARca remix.
I still look back. Sometimes I'll be laying in bed at night and I'll think to myself, remember that year Scott Speed ran ARca? After going from F1 to ARca? Like he went from having like shrimp and dip in like a pit garage and a little box for his helmet and everything and a press person following him everywhere to like, guys, where's the food? And they're like, it's down the street at the McDonald's. Here's the rental car keys. You know, like,
no, dude, they don't give him. He had his own rental car at that point. But here's the thing. You think he had a shock? Think about Juan Pablo Montoya when he started doing ARca in 2006.
God, coming from F1 and being like, what is this? You know?
Oh, dude. I remember Montoya ran ARca at Iowa 2006. Was running great. And then blew a tire and was done. And I was like, man, that sucked.
He made his nation, or I guess it was Busch Series at the time, his debut at Memphis.
Yeah.
Finished 13th.
He was good.
So, he's good, man. JPM. Respect. We mentioned it last week too. Respect on Juan Pablo Montoya's name, folks.
Yeah.
None of this slander. You want to slander someone, slander Scott Speed. We're fine with that.
Except he broke his back, so we'll take it easy on Scott.
Yes.
He did do something extreme to break his back.
Yeah, we love Scott Speed. I know he's mentioned in the Scots video, but we love Scott Speed. We love all the Scots. We love everyone. We just we're not criticizing you as a person. We're just criticizing your actions.
Yeah, we're just criticizing these actions, Scott. That's all, man. Like, you know, I'm pretty sure Scott Speed as a person's a good guy, but like these actions were just like, I don't know. It's like, as a fan of Robbie Gordon, man, you love Robbie Gordon, but when Robbie acts like Robbie, sometimes you just got to scratch your head and be like, I don't know.
Except for the fact that he won that race in Montreal in 2007. And I'm also not a fan of some of his political affiliations. But moving along, that'll do it for this episode of the Flashback to the Track podcast. We will see you all